I'm Laurie Gutmann. I'm a neuromuscular specialist, and I'm at the University of Iowa. What attracted me to neurology was several different factors. One, of course, a really good mentor. I was doing a student rotation at the University of Virginia and was really attracted to neurology because of the cases that we saw, the ability to really establish a relationship with patients. And over time, that's really become important to me and still is a major attractor for me, is the ability to develop long-term relationships with my patients. Of course, the fun of trying to puzzle out what a patient has based on a history and an examination. Even with all the technology that we have, it still is reliant on your ability to put the pieces together to make sense of what the patient has going on. What attracted me to my subspecialty was the same things that attracted me to neurology, but with a more specific interest. I really enjoyed procedures, and so I had the ability to do EMG, nerve conduction studies with patients. I learned to do muscle biopsies, and so it fulfilled some of my interest in doing procedures, as well as the fact that I found the peripheral nervous system, neuromuscular junction, and muscle diseases to be a lot of fun to try to puzzle out. And as time has gone on, now with the advent of more genetics and neurogenetics, it's become even more interesting over time. Deciding on a career path, a lot of it was serendipity, people that I met, a particular time of my life. So initially, when I finished my fellowship in neuromuscular medicine, I wanted to go into academics, but at that time I was married, had a small child, and my spouse wanted to go into private practice. So I ended up in private practice, kind of dragging my feet, but found that I really enjoyed it a lot. I was in private practice for almost 3 years with great partners, developed a nice practice, and then we had a change and ended up having to go back into academics. And initially I wasn't sure that was going to be the best path, and I was a little hesitant that I was going to have to change from private practice to academics and I might be looked down upon. But the experience I had in private practice really helped me be a lot stronger as an academician. I was surprised because of my comfort with dealing with lots of patients on a clinical basis. And then I spent 20 years at West Virginia University, really building my academic career. About 15 years into that, thought maybe it was time to try to grow more in clinical research. I was involved in a lot of clinical research studies, but hadn't really done a lot of my own clinical research, and wasn't sure how to get that training. John Marler and I had a nice talk. He was at the NIH and was a great mentor for me for 4 years. I actually slipped into that track, working part-time at NIH as a program officer, which was a really great formative learning experience for me. It was almost like doing another fellowship, but this time it was in learning about how to run clinical research trials, large clinical research trials, working with experts in clinical research across the world, and learning about budgets and management of trials and all the things that can go right and wrong with clinical trials over time. So those 4 years were really important for me for the next track of my career, which was to go on to do more clinical research and be involved in data safety monitoring boards, work on teaching about clinical research and clinical research training methods. And then most recently, I had the opportunity to join a really great clinical and translational and basic science research department at the University of Iowa. After 20 years in one place, it was a little intimidating to think about changing everything. My location, I actually had to look up where Iowa was on the map because I'd been in predominantly West Virginia and Pennsylvania for most of my life. But the colleagues that I joined there and the growth that was happening at the University of Iowa made all of it worthwhile. It's been a great next step in my career. And I think the thing that I really learned from that was that change is difficult, but also very oftentimes very reinvigorating. And being a neurologist doesn't limit you, and actually in many ways being a neurologist opens up a lot more opportunities for change in your career over time. And I think we tend to forget that as physicians. We think, oh, we're stuck in this career and we can't really change. But there's a lot of latitude, a lot of different things to do, and you shouldn't be afraid to try to change. Changing your career track within neurology is only limited really by your imagination. I think that for me, networking over my lifetime and knowing lots of different people in different areas of neurology was really helpful. It allowed me to ask people questions, to sort of see that there's a lot of different paths. Working at NIH was something that I never would have imagined when I initially graduated from my training programs, but it really was an eye-opening experience. Because of the exposure that I had to researchers across the world, I saw that there were many different paths that people could take, and that oftentimes people did change to something completely different from what they had done before. You're only limited, I think, primarily by your imagination and your willingness to ask people about opportunities. And so I think if there's something that you're interested in and you want to change your track, the key thing to do is to start talking to people and start asking about opportunities. You would be surprised. I would have thought that at 55, when I decided it was time to change tracks again, that there really wasn't going to be a lot of opportunity for me at this stage of my career. And what I found was that when I put together the picture of where I saw myself moving forward to each of the people that I interviewed with, I ended up with multiple offers and opportunities, each one a little bit different than the other, and each one leading to somewhere slightly different over time. And it was very refreshing and very reinvigorating to realize that you can change your career. And most people outside of medicine do change their careers in one way or another over time. And I think we just forget that we can do it. I think my biggest contribution to neurology has been to help other people move forward. And that's been through being a residency program director, a fellowship program director. It's been also when I worked at NIH, helping guide people, putting people together for different projects, and continuing to do that, realizing that one of the best things you can do is to take somebody who has a good idea but is maybe a little bit is a little bit stuck because of resources or even because of a lack of knowledge in a particular area, and putting them together with someone else. I think one time one of my former residents described me as a Lego piece, that I had a good way of putting people together. And over time I realized that that is a really important thing to be able to do. And it's a legacy that you can leave if you can look back and see all the people that you helped just by pushing them in one direction or introducing them to somebody or encouraging them to follow through with a particular idea, and then you see them be successful. I think that's been more of my contribution, is to watch other people that I've trained and worked with be successful because I sort of pointed them in one direction or another.